Welcome, everyone. We're so glad this day has arrived and you are here. I'm Ann Hancock, the Executive Director of the Center for Climate Protection. We've organized this conference for you today, along with our wonderful partners, the Local Government Commission and the Local Government Sustainable Energy Coalition. Would all the elected officials in the room please stand so that we can acknowledge you? Please stand if you're an elected leader. We really thank you for your leadership and your service day in and day out. Okay, how many of you were here in San Jose at last year's symposium? Would you raise your hand? Great. How many of you know that you're in that pano photo I took of last year's session? Good. So at last year's session, we announced that if current trends continue, 60% of eligible Californians would be covered by community choice by 2020. That's 18 million Californians. And this year's program, the theme is it's all about impact. Well, first, let me show you this map. This is our map from our Clean Power Exchange website, and we update it weekly, and we love to watch the colors change. So this is just a comparison last spring, 2016, with this spring, 2017. I don't know if you can see it, but you know, when you start serving customers, you turn green. And look at just how the changes in that map over a year's time. And here is the amount of population served by community choice, just so you can get a sense of the load and how it's increasing and how it's projected to increase. So this year's theme is it's all about impact. We had a colleague of ours do a quick study to find out what the projected greenhouse gas emission reductions are, and also what the customer savings are over time. So here are the annual and then cumulative greenhouse gas emissions we project, and this is over and above the IOU achievement of the California standards. So what we're looking at is 5.5 million tons of greenhouse gas reduced or avoided by 2020. And then for California customer savings, this is the amount of savings that they will realize. And so by 2020, the amount is $190 million per year. And that amount can go up or down, as we know, but this is compared with the business as usual scenario. In the past few days, we learned that the UCLA's Luskin Center has done a report, and we got to see the draft, and it pretty much showed similar results. So we're very happy about that, and we have added Dr. J.R. Shazo to an afternoon panel, CCE Energy Ecosystem. So this isn't on your program, but if you want to hear the results of that new Luskin study, you'll attend that CCE Energy Ecosystem panel. CCA was created by the California legislature to give communities a choice. And that choice is in jeopardy now, as IOUs, fearing competition, are pushing for higher exit fees, higher bonds, and a new approach to allocating costs for procurement. But CCAs have always had to fight to stay alive, and it's normal that IOUs would fight new competitors. Fortunately, we are getting stronger and stronger. We call on the California Public Utility Commission to level the playing field, to protect all bundled and unbundled customers, to let community choice entities be competitive. This is the intent of the law when community choice was created. And as we've seen with these impacts, it's good for communities, it's good for customers, and it's good for the climate. So now we want to thank our sponsors and partners. Take a look at them. Let's give them all a big hand, and we thank you so much. So it is now my pleasure to introduce Senator Allen. Senator Ben Allen will give the state perspective on community choice. He was elected to the Senate in 2014. He is a member of the Senate committees on election and constitutional amendments, natural resources and water, transportation and housing. He co-chairs the Environmental Caucus and co-authored the Senate's historic climate change legislation, SB 350. Welcome, Senator Allen.
Thank you. Well, I thought that was about to be one of the shortest introductions I've ever had, but we did get some detail. I really do appreciate that, and I appreciate being here this very, very fine morning. I want to start by saying that my good friend Robert Garcia, the mayor here in Long Beach, is going to be coming later in the day, but he very much extends his warm welcome to you, and I know he's excited to have folks here in his wonderful city of Long Beach. I represent the west side of Los Angeles and also the coastal South Bay. I'm from Santa Monica myself, but the communities in my district include the wonderful cities of Hermosa Beach and Manhattan Beach and Redondo. There's a lot of really great stuff going on in the CCA space. Santa Monica is obviously taking the lead. We're very excited and learning a lot from all the successes that we've been able to see up in Northern California and Marin and San Francisco and Sonoma. There's this tidal wave of cities that are starting to see how beneficial CCAs could be for their consumers and also, of course, for our environment. And it shows ultimately, we've seen in study after study that CCAs can be the single most effective tool that we have to reduce greenhouse gases and pollution at the local level. And this is something that we as a state are very focused on. Regardless of what's happening in Washington, D.C., in the state of California, we have taken a very clear step forward in fighting for a more sustainable future for our children and the future generations. So let's talk a little bit about what we were able to accomplish in the last legislative session. The two major pieces of legislation that I think bear a little bit of mention, most folks here will know a little bit about them, is SB 350 and SB 32, which really do set us very far ahead of the rest of the country with regards to greenhouse gas emission reductions, energy efficiency improvements, and then of course, this ever increasing renewable portfolio standard. The fact that we are asking that our electricity be come from renewable sources. The law now says that by 2030, 50% of our electricity will come from renewable sources, and then the pro tem, the president of our Senate, Kevin de Leon, has just put forward SB 100, and the idea is that by 2045, we will have literally a 100% renewable portfolio standard. We're very hopeful that will get some traction. So it is an exciting moment to be in California. We have a new and exciting relationship with the federal government, but we are certainly working hard to do right by our voters and our constituents and the folks in our state who know that there are so many opportunities on the business side and certainly on the public health side with regards to renewable energy. Now, one of the things that was alluded to earlier was the challenges, the political challenges. What's the current climate in Sacramento? How have these battles played out? Well, and the truth is, there have been some challenges with traditional friends and allies, folks who want to make sure that as we grow this new sector of our energy economy, that people are being brought along. How are we doing everything we need to do to make sure that the costs associated, oftentimes when we implement new programs like CCAs, sometimes there are concerns that there are going to be some short-term cost increases associated with certain aspects of infrastructure that may be easier to bear in communities like Santa Monica, but perhaps less easy to bear in areas where there's a great deal more poverty. The other big question that's out there, of course, is how do we make sure that we're creating good jobs And a lot of our friends in the labor movement raise continual concerns about this, and they've proven to be a challenge in some of the debates and discussions over CCAs that take place in Sacramento. So one of the interesting things I want to just bring up is this partnership that I have in my district, and I see Joe Galliani here, who's my good friend from the South Bay, really helped to put CCAs on my radar screen. I was already swirling around in my head, but you really focused me in, Joe, when I was running for office a few years ago, and I do appreciate you for that and all their continual work together with my staff. But the South Bay Clean Power folks who are trying to build a really good operation in the South Bay around a CCA model have been working hard and pulling together the IBEW, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 11, and also the LA chapter of the National Electrical Contractors Association. They're partnering now with the South Bay Clean Power folks on an ambitious multi-billion-dollar distributed energy build-out that will employ tens of thousands of skilled laborers over the next 2 decades. And it's going to be a way there's going to be project labor agreements, community benefit agreements, job training, apprenticeship programs, even a commitment to help refinery communities like Torrance and Carson, who have been struggling with some of the challenges associated with the refineries there, and how we move their economies off of that dependency. So there's some opportunities here for us to actually think creatively. Look at the folks who've been challenging us, but then figure out what their ultimate goals are, and try to move us together toward a path that will be mutually beneficial. Now, Torrance, for example, has got enough brownfield land to accommodate a potential of 540 megawatts of solar, and that's just one intriguing local opportunity. I encourage you to think about similar ones in your communities. Now, some CCAs already offer customers a plan to get 50% of their energy from renewables at competitive prices, while all of them also offer a 100% renewables option at a slight premium. It's our strong feeling in my cadre, in the Environmental Caucus, that CCAs are better suited to accelerate energy efficiency deployment because of their close ties with the community. As you know, Title 24 from the Energy Efficiency Building Code requires that all new residential buildings must be net zero energy in just 2.5 years, and all new commercial buildings must meet that target by 2030. And so it's the hope that CCAs will play an important role in helping to reach these targets by increasing energy efficiency and by providing local renewable power. Now, our state's CPUC, the Public Utilities Commission, the California Energy Commission, CalISO, the Independent System Operator, they all have very distinct goals for achieving more grid stability and local resiliency, as well as the ability to integrate more renewable energy generation by deploying more distributed energy. And CCAs will help to meet these goals as well. And so that's why I'm just very proud to be this recently funded LA County CCA initiative actually started in my own district just 3 years ago. There was a grassroots coalition that began by educating the public. They brought 14 cities together, and this effort has now become the catalyst for a program countywide that's really going to impact 83 of our eligible cities in the county. That's the power of the people power that is behind the CCA movement, putting decision-making in the hands of the people at the local level, engaging your local elected officials. I noticed some of the city council members here, getting them involved, getting them excited, and then getting them to help implement a new program. Now, look, as I mentioned, there are certainly some challenges that we have. There is this perception that this is like a thing that is only enjoyed by the wealthy coastal communities that can afford the luxury of solar power. And there's all these talks about a cost shift, that is oftentimes used to hurt the CCA effort in places like Sacramento. And these arguments really do resonate. I mean, we've got a lot of people in our state who represent people who are really struggling under the challenges of the ever-evolving economy. And the question is, how do we get this movement into our less affluent areas? How do we explain and work with partners in other parts of the state where people are really struggling economically on a broader basis? And how do we make sure that we bring them on board and bring them into this conversation? And it's my strong belief that as members of the legislature see their own local communities engaging and embracing this model, they will come on board. We will start to see more champions in the legislature. Now, look, a lot of people say, well, Democrats have 2/3 majority in both houses of the legislature. Now, why isn't this just a no-brainer? Well, the fact of the matter is that, there's a lot of different kinds of people in our party and a lot of different perspectives. There's a lot more diversity than people sometimes think, and it's not just socioeconomic or ethnic. It's also ideological. And, I think ultimately it's about educating, and it's about engaging. It's about a lot of the grassroots work that you're going to be doing on the ground level in a lot of communities all over the state. Now, we certainly saw some of the challenges though when it came to some of the aggressive goals that we had in SB 350, for example, where we wanted to reduce petroleum use by 50% by 2030, and that of course was ultimately stripped from the bill because of the power of the petroleum industry and the fact that they were able to really push it back. That bill, by the way, only required a majority vote, and we weren't even able to get that provision in with the majority of Democrats supporting. We had a majority of Democrats supporting, but of course we needed almost all of our Democrats to support, and that we weren't able to do that. So this is just going to be a lot of work. We're going to have to keep working together to really try to broaden out the promise of the CCA program to our entire state. Now let me just bring up a couple bills that I think we really need to look at and make sure we get passed this year. The first one I mentioned, SB 100. This seeks to accelerate the RPS with a goal of 60% renewable energy electricity by 2030, and then the idea would be to ramp up to 100% by 2045. Enormously important goal, one that we really have to work on. The fact that the President of the Senate has taken this on as a priority, this has become a real kind of flagship bill for him is a fantastic thing. It certainly doesn't guarantee success, but with all of us working together, I think we're in a good place to make progress in that area. Now let me talk about a bill that I'm working on, SB 692, and we're trying to correct a cost shift, another kind of cost shift that requires local renewable projects to pay for the transmission grid that they don't use. So, the idea of the bill is that we're going to ask CalISO to begin an initiative to determine how to best assess transmission access charges, the tax, to help the state meet our energy and climate goals and to help to ensure a more consistent application of these charges. Through large parts of the state, utilities pay tax on TACs, right, these transmission access charges, on all energy that they sell to consumers. But most municipal utilities actually use a better system, right? They pay these charges only on energy that they pull from the transmission grid, which is then metered at substations located between the transmission and distribution grids. And it's our strong. The fact is that centralized generation requires expensive transmission to deliver energy to consumers, whereas distributed generation resources provide energy to nearby consumers without using transmission, and in the process, that of course allows the transmission system to be available to other projects. Nonetheless, outside of municipal utility territories, energy from local projects is still subject to these transmission access charges. I likened it in a meeting with CalISO the other day to say, forcing someone in Sacramento to be paying for their fast pass continually drawing down to help pay for a road in Orange County that they'll never use. He didn't entirely agree with my analogy, but we're working together, so we're trying to figure this out. And I know it's a controversial issue, but we're trying to get them to look at this question. We're trying to get them to look at this question to make sure there's more fairness in the way that we distribute costs and charges across the system. And we're looking to address this market distortion through the bill. The bill actually got out of the Senate just yesterday. I'm really excited about that. And as we move on to the Assembly, there will be certainly challenges. But if you're not already in support of the bill, but you'd like to help, or if you want to get involved, please do let me know. My staffer, Fernando, is here somewhere, and we're certainly looking to try to build support and energy behind the bill. Are you excited? Oh, great. Okay. California Alliance for Community Energy has a table. You can sign up to help us with the bill. So thank you so much for your continual advocacy and your work in this area. This is the way of the future. One day, we will think that it was absurd that we had to fight so hard to put in place a program so simple and so reasonable and sensible as CCAs. Ultimately, this effort is going to be about the hard work on the ground, the infrastructural work, the financial work that you do, but there's a political job to be done too, and it is all about trying to figure out ways to bring more people into the tent. How do we create better paying jobs for working class people? How do we create a model that's going to work financially for people who are struggling in other parts of our state? Let's keep thinking about that. Let's keep trying to diversify this community. Let's keep trying to focus on economic justice and social justice as we also focus on sustainability and environmental justice. And with that, I really appreciate your advocacy and thank you for being here today.